What do you do when you want to work major muscle groups? You want to boost that metabolism. Maybe weight loss is a goal, or it's, I know I need strength. I know I need to work on bone density, and I have an obstacle. Maybe for you, it's plantar fasciitis. It also may be big toe arthritis or a neuropathy. And you know if you have it. If you don't have it, that word is foreign to you and good for you. I'm Debra Atkinson. I'm the founder of Flipping 50. These are some of the obstacles that thousands of women who go through our programs often have. So I'm going to share a couple ways to modify very common exercises that you're given in programs that you may not be able to do. But I want to make sure you have a great substitute that actually allows you to work the same muscle groups. A little bit more on that coming up. Two of the most common problems that plague women in midlife related to the foot and or the foot and the ankle area are plantar fasciitis. And I'll break that down in a second. And the other one is big toe arthritis. Now, the difference between the two of those, although both words, both terms, have you noticed, end in itis, which means that's a chronic kind of inflammation or problem. Plantar fasciitis, however, is something that you should get over. It took a long time to get and to develop, even though it may have felt like overnight, all of a sudden I started feeling this pain. It was a cumulative effect. So with plantar fasciitis, if you think about the bottom of your foot, and the palm of my hand is as close as I get without holding my foot up, you have layers and layers deep in your foot. And we have fascia that covers our entire body and our musculoskeletal systems, like a hairnet that goes over the top. But this fascia can get very rigid and bound up. If you've ever gone for a really long walk, and even though you're walking and you're moving, and especially those of you who run experience this, you kind of by the time you get off or get off a bike, it happens there too, or you stop running, you stop walking, you start just feeling kind of locked up around your hip joints, or just if you were leaning forward on a bicycle, you feel locked up because although you were moving and exercising, you're going to feel a little bit more stiff in anything that you held in a static position. You'll notice if you work with a really great, say, marathon training coach, and I used to train for marathons myself, but also trained others how to train. And we want you to stop. We want you to change your gait. I used to have women use music, and I would recommend this. Whether you're walking or jogging, put music, if you're listening to a playlist that varies the tempo. So you may be drawn to a certain upbeat tempo because you can keep the beat and it keeps you going. But I recommend that you throw in a longer, slower song at some point and a faster one and vary it, because if you're rhythmically oriented, you will change your gait, and that gait maybe becomes, instead of really long strides, it becomes really short and quick, or vice versa. And what happens is you're changing the use of your fascia, and it's actually really good and beneficial so that you don't get that locked up feeling because you're in the same mode all the time. So similarly, if you're riding a bicycle, if you know what I mean when I say aerodynamic, so you're down and you're leaning forward like triathletes do, you may want to come up. Sometimes you want to be in that upright position. Those of you who've done Peloton or gone to spinning classes, you also generally have the option of coming down, or you have the option of coming up. And you notice that the instructors will tell you, I want you to go out wide. I want you to come in and up. Changing that keeps you from getting locked up, and you use your core differently, so you'll feel much more comfortable. All right, so that's a little lesson on fascia, but that fascia in your foot has gotten locked up and it's gotten inflamed. The itis means you're in inflammation. And what you're going to do is try to get over that. So rest and ice. So although we want to keep moving, you may want to ride a bicycle instead of doing a lot of walking or jumping or running, because you won't stress it quite as much. You want to potentially get in a swimming pool, do some rowing, things that won't put pressure on it to allow it to rest while the rest of you still gets an exercise stimulus. But when it comes to strength training, these things can be a little bit tricky. Rear lunges, fantastic for the glutes, the hamstrings, the quadriceps. However, terrible, because if this were your foot, we put you back in a position where you're really bending and putting stress and trying to lengthen out that fascia that is really kind of touchy and grouchy right now. So what's the answer to that? It's yes, lunge. We want to substitute an exercise that works the same muscle group, but does it in a way that doesn't stress. So instead of a rear lunge, whenever a rear lunge comes up, what I use is an if this, then that substitute for women who are on either our Flipping 50 membership or in our Flipping 50 program, the one we pull out of membership, and do a side lunge because it allows your feet to stay flat. There is no stress on that Achilles tendon. We don't have to put the stress on the fascia and the big toe. Similarly, if you have big toe arthritis. Now, big toe arthritis also came on over a long period of time. However, it's probably not going away completely. However, pay attention to your diet. So decreasing the tendency toward inflammatory kinds of foods. Inflammatory kinds of foods include things like dairy, like gluten and wheat. And usually for my clients, when we remove those completely, generally aches and pains tend to go away fairly quickly, within days, if not the first week. So for many of my clients who are in midlife, we'll do an elimination of those things and then gradually reintroduce them one by one so that we can test, are you okay doing those, or are you sensitive to right now? That's not the right food for you, and we need to do a little gut healing. For anyone with an autoimmune disease like RA, rheumatoid arthritis, Hashimoto's, lupus, you potentially don't even want to reintroduce. Now, we don't want to include or ignore the fact that there are a lot of positive micronutrients that we want from those foods, and we want to account for them in substitutes. But no matter what your passion and your love might be, there are alternative yogurts. There's an alternative to ranch dressing that is vegan or that you can make with cashews. There's an alternative to almost everything that you want. Cream in your coffee is a big one for midlife women. Coconut cream is amazing. So those things will all help. The exercise substitutes, either permanently or temporarily. The most common exercise problems occur with lunges and or any jumping that encourages some kind of a lunge position, and with planks. So making sure that, again, I'll show you on the big screen what those substitutes would be. Take a look. You're seeing here a demonstration of a rear lunge, which is a fantastic exercise, keeps the knees safe, but you can see the deep flexion in the forefoot and the midfoot. Not going to work if you have either of these conditions. But look, when we substitute for a side lunge, which still gets glutes, hamstrings, quadriceps, your foot can stay flat. Now you have a substitute that's doable. Same happens when you're in a plank, deep flexion, forefoot, midfoot, and you don't want to substitute with just knees because that'll reduce the work. If you're able to go full body, try putting your ankles on a foam roller and you still have that long lever. Very little discomfort here because there's not a lot of muscle that you're pressing on. So I hope that was helpful. So what I'd love for you to do is comment down below if that was helpful. If you've ever dealt with plantar fasciitis yourself, you have big toe arthritis, or you have another, here's an exercise that I just can't do because of X. Tell me what that X factor is for you, and we'll see if we can come up with an adequate substitute that still stimulates that same muscle group. Because especially if it's a major muscle group set like lower body exercise using glutes and quads and hamstrings, we don't just want to throw that one out and put in core or skip it, fast forward. We want to find an exercise that you can do meanwhile, at the very least. Don't forget to subscribe, hit the bell so that you'll get notified of any new videos, and especially if you tell me what your question is, I'll answer that next time.